Welcome to Drudgery, Dreams, and In Between, the podcast for neurodivergent weirdos and queers who forget about struggling to adult, we're struggling to human.
At least that's what everyone's telling us.
You're right.
Per usual. Hey, I'm Angela, bringing sense to the conversation. From here on my soapbox, I shed light on the things society doesn't want you to talk about. You know, the real shit that matters: intersectional thinking, sexuality, queerness, neurodiversity, consent, and the fact that self-care is bullshit. For me, it's all about community and how we can care for each other.
And I'm Molly, giving a big fork you to cookie cutter solutions. I help burnt out, busy as fuck, neurodivergent, and queer entrepreneurs make shit happen by providing out-of-the-box solutions and sustainable systems to grow your biz. For me, it's all about doing what makes sense for your brain.
Enough with the chit-chat. Let's get to it.
Keep listening, and together we'll explore the drudgery, dreams, and all that shit in between. Get ready to call bullshit on what everyone's saying you should be doing,
as we navigate the spectrum between what really matters to you and the shit keeping you from it.
Hey, everybody. We're so excited to be here today. As you notice, there's a third individual here with us today. And it's actually so it's a really funny story. So here's the thing. A couple weeks ago, Angela lost her Stimagz. And if you've been around the podcast for a while, you know that the devastation was real. Like
tears.
The episode stopped in the middle of a live recording to address the loss of the Stimagz, who somebody may or may not have taken out of the room and lost.
I did not lose them.
It was not you. I'm not talking about you. And like there was another week about that, and then there was the stupid human who decided to steal things from the mail when you thought your Stimagz were there. And Angela, I had said to Angela at one point, I was like, you should connect with like Stimagz and tell them what happened, and like it's a really good connection for you and all the things that you're doing. And next thing I know, the founder and creator of Stimagz is sitting right here.
Hello.
This is Kody, guys.
This is Kody. Yes, this is Kody. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then we want to hear your voice. So Kody was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and very quickly became frustrated with the lack of resources made for us ADHD adults. So he set out to do something about it. Yay, entrepreneurial spirit. He started creating educational and relatable ADHD content on social media to help people learn about their brains and to feel a sense of community, #community care, and also created a magnetic stim fidget toy called Stimagz. And this is designed to be durable, and it is, I attest to that, and to meet ADHD and other ND STEM needs. Hi, Kody.
Hello. Pleasure to be here.
We're so excited to have you. No, for our listeners, I don't know if you can pick up on the excitement that Angela is vibing right now, because Angela normally does not sing in our episodes.
This is true.
I'm honored.
So, okay, now that we've totally built this up and like we've got this all great, Kody, we are so excited to kind of hear how you were like, well, shit, I've got ADHD. Okay. Because I feel like that's a big part of this story.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. A little preface: I stayed up too late last night. The new episode of The Mandalorian came out. It was the first episode in like 2 years, so I stayed up until midnight to watch it, and then I couldn't fall asleep until like 2 because I was just thinking about it. It was pretty good. I won't spoil anything, but I enjoyed it.
You can't see it, but behind me is the X-Wing and the Millennium Falcon. So
that is wonderful. I love that.
Realized when you said that, I was like, how have I not watched it?
I didn't actually know it was coming out. I try to avoid all the news for everything just because I don't want any spoilers of anything whatsoever. But my roommate said, hey, it's coming out at midnight. Do you want to watch? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Anyways.
Is that even a real question?
Yeah, right? Anyways, ADHD tangent there. I sort of always knew that I was ADHD. It was written on a lot of my report cards in elementary school. If he should probably get evaluated. But back then, the understanding was very different. It was much more of the sort of hyperactive little boy disorder is what it was thought of. And a lot of the sort of emotional aspects of the other areas that it can affect your life weren't really known, or if they were known, they weren't talked about publicly very often. And so I was never evaluated or diagnosed or anything until my early 20s, when I was actually going in to get evaluated for other mental issues, namely anxiety and depression. And then I was also diagnosed with OCD in that same sitting. So fun little quadruple whammy there.
Yeah.
And then once I was diagnosed, this is a pretty common thing I know. I went down a total rabbit hole of wanting to learn everything that I could about ADHD. And I didn't actually download TikTok until about a year later. And that's when I really started learning a lot more about the more anecdotal ADHD experiences. And by that, I mean medical science takes a long time to catch up to, I guess, experiential science, if you can call it that, in terms of you have millions of people who are all saying that they are diagnosed with this disorder and experience this thing more so than people that are not diagnosed with this disorder. Obviously, more research needs to be done to establish those types of links conclusively, but anecdotally, that's enough to go off of. And so when I downloaded TikTok and started seeing more of that, I realized, wow, this really affects me a lot more than I thought it did. And as a neurodevelopmental disorder, that makes sense. It changes the way that your brain structure develops as you age. And so, of course, it's, the lens you view the world will be different than if you did not have that neurodevelopmental disorder. And I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I looked down at my keyboard and I cleaned it last week and there's already dust all over it. What?
Oh no.
I know.
Oh, no.
Immediate. Well, I need to just sit in a completely blank room when I'm doing podcasts or recording things because I get distracted so easily.
I know, but then
that's
you'd be
the
really
point.
bored.
That's probably true.
See, with our podcast though, this is what we're all about, is like
Par for the
showing the
course.
realities of
Yeah.
like, we're doing great, and squirrel. That squirrel
Pretty much.
is a specifically type of squirrel from a variety of countries and only lives in this one tree. Like that is.
I feel really called out.
I know
I've
it's
called
a
you out way
stereotype,
too
but
many
it's kinda
times
true.
today.
Like the
We were
squirrel thing,
talking
if I
about
see a
that.
squirrel and like when I'm walking outside and talking with someone, I will very frequently verbally say squirrel, and then I'll
Squirrel.
just get back to whatever I was talking about. Squirrels are dope.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's more of like your brain took energy to acknowledge that a squirrel was there, and you want to allow the other person the opportunity to know that thing because
Oh, yeah.
your brain
Share the
obviously
love,
thought it was
baby.
important. I need to let you know too. Like
Yes.
it's not uncommon. But okay, so diagnosis story. Now I gotta
Right.
figure
Yeah.
out where we're at.
Diagnosed at 20 and then went on TikTok and then
Oh yeah.
I don't remember exactly what came first. It was a bit of two things developing simultaneously in terms of starting the development of Stimagz and then also doing my social media stuff I started on TikTok and then branched out to Instagram, YouTube, and then very recently started on Facebook as well. Just posting, same types of content, but different platforms, different audiences. When I was a kid, I had this set of little magnetic toys, and they were meant to be used to build things, just like Legos or Bionicles, that type of thing. But I would use them as a STEM toy, and that's where the idea of Stimagz came from. But they were discontinued in 2006 because they weren't built super well, because they weren't intended to be used as a STEM toy. So and they were meant for kids. So if kids were rough with them, the magnets would fall out, and the kids would swallow the magnets, and it was a really bad deal. But I had a bunch of them from when I was a kid, and I would use them as a STEM toy until they fell apart, and then I'd have to throw them out and pick up a few more from my stash. I ran out at one point when I was, I think, 17, and I spent $300 buying some of the last sets in existence of those original units. And I don't want to say the brand name, just for legal reasons.
Right.
But I spent a lot of money trying to buy the last few. And then when those started breaking, I realized there's no way I can have a lifetime supply of these. I think I need to make my own. And very quickly I realized, if they're this helpful for me, it stands to reason that they would be helpful for other people as well. So I set out to build something that had that similar feeling, similar form function, but a lot more durable and with stronger magnets. So they'd actually be designed to be used as a STEM toy, not as a construction toy with an, I suppose, off-label purpose of being used to STEM. And that's where the idea of Stimagz came from. So I started working on that and realized, oh, if I'm doing this, it makes sense to integrate it into the neurodivergent community ahead of time and involve people in the development, make sure that it's something that they want, check in with people on like what form factor they like, what colors they enjoy, what materials feel good in their hands, because I know that we all have a lot of sensory sensitivities. And that's really led me to where I am today. My sort of personal mission statement is to create value for neurodivergent people, rather that's and that can be through, creating products such as Stimagz or a few of the other things that I'm working on that I can't share quite yet, but I'm really excited about, or just through creating, educational or relatable videos on social media that can help people understand themselves a little bit better or feel a little less alone. So people have asked me before, like, okay, what's your primary focus? I don't think I really have a primary focus. My focus is just creating that value for people.
You don't ask somebody with ADHD what their primary focus is.
That's a good point.
It's funny you mentioned that. So I had a discovery call with a new client right before I got on, and they were like, I know I'm supposed to do one thing, but I don't think I can live a life of one. I'm like, we do neurodivergent things here. There's no one.
Yeah.
Like, there's never one for us.
No, maybe one for a couple weeks, and then you'll go on to the next one.
Yeah. I was going to say, I can definitely get very focused, and I enjoy the focus on one thing, but it doesn't last forever.
Does not.
No.
I had a near encyclopedic knowledge of snakes from probably 2nd through 4th grade, and then I just moved on to something else. And now I still know a lot about snakes, not nearly encyclopedic anymore, but that was just my core obsession for a long while there.
Yeah. Oh, I so hear you. So hear you on that. So how much did you make through your Kickstarter? Because that's where I found you. I came on the Kickstarter, and it's like, yes, I have to have these. You had a really successful Kickstarter.
Yeah, it went really well. Personally, just to be clear, I did not really make anything from that. I think I paid myself enough to cover rent for 2 months. Everything else went directly right back into the business. And I know that that's pretty unusual for Kickstarters, at least given the public reputation that they have. Of generally, Kickstarters take a very long time to fulfill. I've ordered some things several years ago that still haven't arrived, and every few months they'll send me like, oh, they're shipping soon, we've had manufacturing delays. And I totally understand that. I know that manufacturing and logistics, especially right now, can really be hell. The world still hasn't caught up from the 2 weeks of shutdown in 2020 because everything was on such a lean manufacturing schedule. It's a nightmare. But even with that, I'm gonna toot my own horn for a minute here. I definitely went above and beyond to make sure that everything was as set up and planned as possible before launching the Kickstarter. I could have launched it in May, but I waited until October to make sure that, okay, I have this manufacturing schedule down. I know exactly how long it will take me after I place the order at a certain threshold to then receive them, and in what colors I believe will be most popular, so I can have the manufacturer prep those materials ahead of time, doing everything I possibly could to streamline the process, because that then also allowed us to open the Shopify in January and get things selling as quickly as possible. Because I suppose the downside of spending so long in development, those extra probably 3-4 months, is it definitely cut into well, obviously revenue because we weren't selling anything, but also just the sort of existing resources we had. And by we, I mean it was just me, but I'm used to saying we because it makes the company seem bigger. Have an employee now, which is awesome. She's doing great. I think she's actually the one that probably responded to your email initially and then forwarded it to me.
Fantastic human being.
Oh yes, she is wonderful. Shout out Karis. Let's see. Yeah, so the Kickstarter raised almost $90,000, which was awesome. And then sales on the Shopify have been doing great so far. It seems like people are really excited about it. And we've been partnering with a lot of neurodivergent creators on social media. And And since I'm approaching people as a part of the community, and it's clear with my track record of, all the videos that I've made and everything, that I really care, and I'm someone that's passionate about helping people, not just some random businessman trying to make a quick buck off of neurodivergent people. Because I feel like a lot of existing quote unquote resources, be it fidget toys or other items made quote unquote for neurodivergent people, are really doing the bare minimum. And obviously there needs to be lower cost options for people that can't afford to pay a heavier price tag for a more premium item. Those absolutely have value, but the market is so saturated with that right now that it's incredibly difficult to find items, once again, be it fidget toys or other resources such as weighted blankets or compression vests, that aren't just complete cheap mass produced garbage.
Yep.
And so that's a niche that I'm really trying to fill. I know that the prices are high. I know it's not for everybody, but I think that there are a lot of people that can really benefit from purchasing something that they know is going to be high quality and they know is going to meet their needs, even if it carries a heavier price tag.
Yep.
That weighted vest thing. So my little is neurodivergent too. And when we first looked at weighted stuff for them, my husband wouldn't buy it because and you might I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing here. When we were little, kids that were neurodivergent who couldn't mask for whatever reason, they were the outcasts. And even the ones that were masking, let's be real, were the outcasts, but like most of the time. So Steven refused to do the weighted vest because it made Blaine stand out if they were to wear it. And so like, not just is there a high quality product, but why do we have to make children stand out for needing?
Yeah, they all look like they're coming from the dentist with a weighted vest.
Right.
Like, what is up with that?
Well, like, we need to protect ourselves from the x-ray machine in some capacity when there's other ways to do that. And so yes. Yeah, I'm here for that.
Glad to hear some initial approval. Haven't actually, I probably shouldn't have actually talked about that because that is in development. But anyways, first unofficial announcement of the weighted vest.
Yay! as a sensory of like integration and sensory environment person, this is so huge. Like this, having Stimagz in and of itself is a way to create an environment that supports your sensory needs. And heavy work and having access to different things that work on the proprioceptive sense it's so necessary and so needed, and we need to be having these conversations. My special interest right here.
Honestly, yes.
Now this is
two of us right where you want us.
Yeah, this is off the subject a little bit, but since we're talking about entrepreneurship, we need a device that takes the rocking in our chairs and turns it into energy for our homes.
Oh my gosh, I'd never have to pay for power
Look
again.
at all three of us right now, right? Like, right? Like, hi, do we need to cut that little thing out and have conversations about it so nobody hears that great idea? No, I want the whole world to hear it, and I want somebody to come up with it ASAP.
If someone makes it before me, that's okay, as long as it's out there.
Oh my gosh, this totally needs to happen. Look at all the energy we're creating right here.
That's true. Okay, but going on with your entrepreneurial stuff. So putting my brand strategist who works with neurodivergence, I don't know why the hat was this tall, but the hat is this tall.
Wizard hat.
My wizard hat. That's also one of my special interests. Okay. You said that I need to make sure that these things are in place before I do this for the Kickstarter, and I need to have this process in place, and I need to double check these things. So it sounds to me like your neurodivergence really helped you have a successful campaign because like you knew the importance or had seen from some type of like, I blame it on my pattern recognition, but maybe you blame it on something else. But essentially you're like, I've observed all of these all of these companies do it wrong.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to collect all the data that I've seen from those 13 things and apply it to my own personal experience and do this. So, so those are some things that went really, really well. Where did you see like some of the struggles pop through? Because a lot of times with ADHD, we see people like go, 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 go. And then they have that crash and then they're like, I'm done. Goodbye. And then they move on. So what in that realm of things, can we talk about that?
Yeah, I guess two-pronged response to that. First one is I would describe myself as a recovering perfectionist, and that a lot of the reason that the Kickstarter was so meticulously planned is that I spent so long planning everything, going over every single word, making sure the punctuation was perfect, refilming a bunch of GIFs or just videos for the main video because I wasn't perfectly satisfied with how they came out. There's a half a second too long pause between this word and this word. And that's something that I don't think I would do again now. But I put so much pressure on myself of, okay, if this doesn't work, what do I do? Like this is my dream. This is what I want to be doing. And so I really put everything I had and then some into it for several weeks leading up to the Kickstarter, and to a lesser extent, several months as well. I was working regularly from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. Every single day, like not taking weekends. Maybe I would take one day off to just recover a tiny bit before jumping back into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that isn't something I would necessarily recommend, and something I'm trying to step away from now, just being okay with little imperfections. And because we're all human, we all make mistakes. Not everything needs to be perfect. And oh yeah, and to answer the second part of your question, or perhaps the more direct part of your question, I definitely experienced that right when we hit the Kickstarter goal. So the first day raised, I think, $2,500 or maybe a bit more. I don't entirely recall, but it was on the fourth day. God said, "Let there be light." Now, a creator named Jeremy Andrew Davis. Sorry, that was a really dry joke. A creator named Jeremy Andrew Davis posted a video on Stimagz that I think it got to nearly 1 million views, just completely naturally, no boosts in there at all. And that drove a very large chunk of the total traffic we got to the Kickstarter. And it took us from, I think, $3,000, or no, not three, sorry, $5,000 to $25,000 over the course of 12 hours. And our goal was set at 8,000 or 9,000. I don't remember exactly where it was,
okay.
but it just exploded us past the goal. And then that was about a week into the Kickstarter. Or no, 4 days. Sorry, it's been a long time. I don't remember the exact timeline, but right after that, that was on a Friday, and so I said, okay, I'm going to take the weekend, and then I'll get back to it on Monday. I didn't really do much for the remaining 2.5 weeks of the Kickstarter. I wasn't burned out. I was still feeling joy with what was going on, but I was feeling very aimless and lost because for so long, for 2 years, my goal was get the Kickstarter funded. And then after that, figure out what comes next. I was just focused on that one singular goal. And so when that goal was achieved, I was just completely aimless. And it wasn't until probably 2 months later when it was actually time to start organizing things to fulfill the Kickstarter. Obviously, I was still working in that time. I had to coordinate with the manufacturer and, make sure the funds were going to the right place, that kind of stuff. But I wasn't doing full work weeks in that time. And obviously, I did need a bit of time off. But even if I didn't need the time off, I don't know if I would have been much use otherwise. I very much had to reset my brain and find a new goal to latch onto, which is another thing I'm trying to deviate from. I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits, but one of the big takeaways from the book is it's better to focus on doing whatever you're doing 1% better every day rather than picking one goal and trying to strive towards that. But that can be really difficult to do, and you're not seeing that market improvement, or you're not seeing that market progress. And so I'm trying to get better at recognizing the little victories and the little successes and the little failures, and taking those as acceptable milestones rather than, okay, I need to hit this sales metric by this date, or I need to do this by this time, because that sets me up for a lot of It's certainly a big success, but it doesn't feel that way. When the Kickstarter funded, at first I cried a lot. There's a video of it on my page, but then after that, I felt very hollow for a while. Just the goal was achieved, and I didn't know what to do. And I'm spiraling here, or I'm circling, so I'll wrap it
No,
up.
you're
This
not.
thought.
You're doing fine.
Oh,
Great.
good. Okay,
You
cool.
are
Great,
doing
yeah.
really good. Don't worry.
Why, thank you. And so I'm trying to get better at just accepting the little things and just being content with doing a little bit better every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a cycle that a lot of neurodivergent humans kind of fall into, especially if we're late diagnosed or ignored diagnosed. In the sense of like we were taught that you have to do it this way, you have to achieve these goals, and we kind of pushed ourselves to make these things happen, even though inherently I'm not sure how we did, but we did,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like if somebody went to 9-year-old Molly and was like, "How did you do that?" I would be like, "I don't know. I woke up one day and it was done." Like it just happened. And so what you're describing really is, and sharing is that this is a common journey for a lot of neurodivergent folks who were sold this premise of goals and how to do it, and that it's okay if that doesn't work for you, and that in some cases might make you feel worse or destroy you in some way. You can find a new way
Yeah.
to do something, and that's positive and that's helpful, and that actually makes you feel good about yourself. And so I feel like that's what you're describing. And that
Definitely.
is
I'm a
I want to
massive
jump into
advocate.
that.
Oh, go
I
for it.
want to jump into that as far as motivation, because I know that that's something that you enjoy talking about is motivation.
That is
So I
correct.
want to jump into that in a minute. But before we do, I want to add that this is also an issue about transitions and how transitions can be difficult. But it's a lot of people don't think about it or see it that way, because it's like, oh, that's something that, that was a really good positive thing that happened. Okay, but it was very unexpected in the way that it happened. And I needed to quickly transition from one space of the production process and the creation process very quickly, transition into this other space.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's where that
huge.
aimlessness comes from, right? Like,
Mhm.
I wasn't ready for that transition. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think that's
Yeah.
normal, but it's not talked about.
Right. And it's one of I know we're supposed to be talking about business in this episode, but I try so hard not to talk about business in other episodes that I'm like, oh, I can talk about it this episode. That is super common for business owners to be like, I just need to go viral. And I'm like, do you understand the amount of work, effort, and energy it would take to A, go viral on a routine basis, and B, to deal with the aftermath
It's
of going
exhausting.
viral?
Yeah.
And after you go viral, it's everything once again feels hollow afterwards. Like if I have a video that gets 3 million views in a week and I post the next one and it gets 25,000, that's still a lot of people that are watching. Or even if I post one and it gets above my average, say it gets 250,000 views, that still feels like a letdown compared to the
Right.
3 million of the week before, which is crazy. You get addicted to the numbers. You want
Right.
that every time, and of course it's designed that way, but it's definitely a struggle.
And it's unfortunate. I know you want to talk about motivation, but this kind of is a motivating factor. Is it's funny to me because people are like, well, 300 people viewed it. I'm like, do you really know what that means? Do you know what a view is? Like how they calculate that view? Oh, but I got 2.5 million reach. That just means people have access to it, and somehow on their screen somebody was looking at something. Like use something measurable.
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing. Like I'm not trying to get preachy. I just like if we're going to use numbers or we're going to control and like we're going to perceive ourselves through value of these numbers, at least use a number that actually is worth something. Like don't like likes are worth something. Somebody saw your video and clicked on a link in your bio, that's worth something. Somebody just watching your video doesn't mean a damn thing.
Not
Like
much.
and so like people perceive that as something worth something, and I'm like, what's worth something is when you actually connect with a human and they do something.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that movement and that then it doesn't count. It's just a vanity thing. I will
Can
get
you
off
tell
my
that we're
soapbox.
hitting on can you tell that we're hitting on this interest that Molly has on social media? And I know, Kody, that you have that same interest.
Indeed.
You have worked in social media for quite some time.
It's been a while. I was actually just thinking about that yesterday. I was going through my catalog and marking. I hired a new virtual assistant recently. She's been awesome. But I'm going through my old videos and marking some to be downloaded and re-uploaded to Facebook or YouTube, since those are newer platforms for me. I don't have a lot of my old stuff on there. And I was looking back and realizing I've been doing this for a year, like a long time, closer to 2 years than one. And I don't remember a lot of these old videos that I've made. I've made hundreds of them, and a lot of them are just like, is that me in that video? I don't remember filming that whatsoever.
Right. And for some people, when they look back at their content, they're like, I am not that human anymore. And I
No.
don't want it out there. Like, so, okay. Yes. All right. I will let you go on to motivations and I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah. So motivation. All of this has led up to that. Tell us about that. Like, what's your interest in that, and what message do you have for us about motivation?
Funny you say interest. I'm a big proponent of the INCUP acronym, which stands for interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, and passion. And it was coined by, I think, William Dodson. He was a psychologist. And it essentially means that neurodivergent people, specifically, sorry, when I say neurodivergent, I'm used to just saying that because when you say autism on social media, it tends to get either flagged or people have just some internal bias and will scroll past it. And so, since if I was just doing it for awareness and education, then I would just power through that. But since I'm also a business owner, unfortunately, it's just not in the best interest of the business to talk about autism exclusively. Sorry, this is a completely different topic, just
No,
because
you're
it.
fine.
I love this conversation. This is
Wonderful.
what my nonprofit is all about. It's like,
There you
we
go.
have got to unsilo all of this, take all of the
Yeah,
silos and bring them into neurodiversity as a whole. I know people listening can't see me making circles with my arms,
gesticulating.
but there is never just one. Intersectionality tells us there's never just one thing happening. There's always a whole bunch of things intersecting and happening at the same time. So I think that your process is right on where it needs to be, and
All right.
ND is the term to be using.
Thank you. I've also found that when I post content online related to autism, specifically if it's something about intersectionality between autism and ADHD, a lot of people get really, really up in arms about it on one side or the other. So there
Not
are
me. I'm autistic and ADHD. So let's have that conversation.
perfect. It gets
A lot of our
so
people
heated so
are
quickly.
ADHD.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully people will understand. That's nice. I don't remember what I was saying. All right. Are you familiar with Sound of the Forest on TikTok?
Yes.
Her name is Nicole. She posts about bugs and other sort of like autism related things.
Yep.
Her account has been banned so many times because of, I don't remember the exact wording they gave, but something to do with like unsafe content related to autism. So if you post about it, you are opening up the door to whatever platform you're on, either outright banning you for I guess because the way that they phrased it was that they wanted to protect autistic people. And it's like, do you realize that Nicole is autistic and is advocating for other autistic people?
Yeah.
This isn't hate speech. This isn't like demeaning. Well, why are you doing this? But you'll also see accounts focusing on autism get shadow banned, where say they have, couple 100,000 followers, they're getting 200 views per video. Obviously, something like that can also happen naturally if, people's interests change and the algorithm is like, hey, people don't want to watch this content. But if you see a drop off from 150,000 views average down to 1,000 over the course of, one video, that's a bit of an indicator.
Yep.
Anyways, so long story short, when I say neurodivergent, I usually am referring to more specifically ADHD and autism because that's what the majority of my content is focusing on. And obviously, it's an umbrella term. It covers a lot more disorders and conditions. Umbrella, there we go. Than just ADHD and autism. But when I use it, that's usually what I'm specifically referring to. I don't remember why I was saying that. We're talking about something earlier.
In cup.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks.
So
Right on, Molly.
specifically, perfect. Look at you go. Specifically, ADHD people are motivated by in-cup more so than importance. And so if you think, okay, I need to mow the lawn or I need to do the dishes, I know it's important, but that doesn't motivate me to do it. Whereas in-cup does: interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, and passion. So if you're interested in something, such as, you being interested in the numbers, Molly, or Angela, I guess you being interested in Stimagz and then going out and trying to reach out to me, that can then immediately motivate you to do something more so than importance ever could. And same thing with challenge. Urgency is a big one. I don't know if you, like when you were in college, if you were in college or high school, always writing papers the last minute. That's a very
last minute.
Yep. That's a very common ADHD
and knocking it out of
the
the park too, right?
Yeah.
Like you write your paper a week in advance and it sucks, but you write your paper the night before and it is like
you're
perfect.
laser focused.
Yes.
And it was always like, I know for me, anytime it was an English paper, I was like, I'm going to write about the most obscure thing that they can't negate about this story. And and then I would get an A because they were like, nobody's ever come up with that before. That is brilliant. No, that was me pulling something out my ass today.
In 8th grade, my teacher, we had the whole semester or trimester, I don't remember what section it was on, but to work on this one paper, and she kept on saying, you cannot wait until the last minute to do this. And so I took that as a challenge, naturally. I wrote it the day before and got 100%. So worked out well. And then also last year in my philosophy class, I wrote a paper about why I thought the class was dumb, got an A. Worked out well. As long as you articulate yourself well, people are surprisingly amicable to ideas like that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
No, it's very
I love it.
So back to motivation.
Oh, right.
Yes. Okay, where were we? We were talking in-cup. What letter did we get onto in-cup? We just said urgency.
Urgency. A lot of them are kind of just exactly what it sounds like. And passion and interest are pretty much the same thing, but in-cup sounds better than inku. So slap the P on there as well. But essentially, the more of those motivators you can stack onto any given task, the easier it will be for you to do that task. I always give the analogy of the dishes, or here's a new one. If taking a shower is really hard, you have to get in the shower, you have to wash your hair, you have to scrub your body, all of that stuff. If you can do it like, okay, I put on a playlist, I have to do my hair while this song is playing, I have to do a face mask while this song is playing, and I have to get out when this song plays. Like adding that timing to it makes it urgent. It could be interesting, it could be challenging to get those things done on time. And that makes it a lot easier than just, okay, I'm going to get in the shower and I have to do this thing, and now I have to do this thing. And to someone listening that does not struggle with that, and that's awesome. Good for you. In those situations, it can be difficult to understand why it is difficult for people like us to do those things. It seems just so common sense, like, oh, that's just part of being a person. You need to be able to do that. It's not always that simple.
That's what we mean when
water
we say
is so gross.
I love water. I'm a water whore.
No, I mean water touching you.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna get into that.
Oh, go ahead, Angela.
No. I'm just saying, this is why people tell us that we don't know how to people. That's why we have the opening that we have on this podcast, is like people tell us we people wrong, and it's like, well, I don't people wrong. I just don't people like you, because for me, the process of getting in the shower is, number one, a big cognitive load.
Yeah.
Because of the sensory issues that happen for me around that. I'm fine under the water, but it is a huge challenge to get in, and then the getting out, and the mix between the dry and the wet skin. No, it's very hard. So a lot of people do not understand that at all.
No. Well, and I have a little who refuses. Refuses.
Yeah.
Has refused for 2 years. Obviously, we still bathe the child. Don't get me wrong, but we finally found a way to do it, and he's on. They're autistic and ADHD. My brain cannot say those words together. And I found bath bombs that have Hot Wheels and jewelry and whatever inside of them. So we put them in the bathtub, the child, and then put the bath bomb in the bathtub. And then the water changes colors. And next thing you know, maybe your hair will change colors if we put your hair in the water.
Whoa.
Oh,
Oh.
and then mommy
Wow.
sneakily puts the shampoo in. Oh, it didn't change colors. Next time we'll try again. And now somehow I've gotten this child to bathe a couple times.
That's a
like,
win.
that's a
Right.
win.
Piquing that interest, right? Piquing
Yeah.
that interest for sure.
Also, speaking
So-
of the intro, really quick, I am curious about you mentioned, I think self-care is bullshit was the line. And I know
Yeah.
you mentioned after that, I think you said community care is where it's at. I was hoping to hear a bit more about that because that's just, that's rhetoric I haven't heard before.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you for noticing that.
Okay, don't worry.
Yes,
It's a good
I have actually had quite a bit of feedback on saying that self-care is bullshit is not a good thing, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at this because it is. And this is a social and economic security issue and a social justice issue. Bo Burnham, thank you, White Woman Instagram. Um, Wellness is something that is dependent on how much money you have in our society right now. The only people who are allowed to be well are white, cisgender, heterosexual, wealthy people. And if you don't have the wealth to be able to purchase the things to be well, whether it is healthcare, access to healthcare, or go and get a massage, get a pedicure, go out with people, get a babysitter for your kids. Notice all of these things cost money. And we have to get away from this narrative of this is something that you are responsible for yourself completely. And we need to move into the narrative of community care is where wellness comes from. It's the community's responsibility to care for itself, to create sustainability in the community by caring for providing access to that care for all of its members, regardless of the intersections that they have.
The healthcare one's an interesting point. I got COVID for the second time, or maybe even the third over the summer, and I had a heart issue come from that, and I had to go to the doctor a lot. And the doctor that I was going to, their clinic has a really interesting structure where it's a flat fee of $50 a month, and I could go in as many times as I want. I can make an appointment just through text, just send them a message and say, "Hey, do you have any availability today?" And I can go in 2 hours later, as opposed to having to make a phone call, God forbid,
Oh my
and
God.
getting billed a unpredictable amount by insurance every time. I went to the doctor probably 7 or 8 times that month alone. And just know, like, having in the back of my mind that I'm not going bankrupt by taking care of myself
Yes.
it made it so much easier to actually take care of myself. And that's a structure that I shout out. Let's see, it's called Direct Primary Care. If anyone listening to this is in Spokane, check out Direct Primary Care. They are awesome.
And we will put a link to that resource in there. I also timestamped that because that's going to be like a clip that we need to take out is the going bankrupt piece. We shouldn't have to worry about going bankrupt to have basic health care.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean when I say self-care is bullshit.
That makes sense. I interpreted that very differently. My definition of self-care is probably, I guess, a little less money dependent, I suppose. Because I play a lot of video games, except I don't buy a lot of video games. I play a lot of just the same ones that I've played forever. So my hobbies are pretty cheap. And by self-care, I usually mean, okay, it's a Saturday, I'm going to sit down and eat some ice cream and then also a few carrots and play some video games with the lights off. That's what
Yeah.
self-care means to me. So that's just my
I'm going to piggyback
perspective
on that.
reflecting that. Go
I'm
for
going
it.
to piggyback on that. You said I don't spend a lot of money on video games, but just like at amusement parks, you get more and you have access to more if you're willing and able to pay for it.
That's true.
So it could be that you don't have access to certain members of the community or certain things that would be fun and interesting and all of those in-cup things for you if you didn't have to pay for the
Yeah, I certainly
extras.
wasn't disagreeing. I was merely attempting to share my, I guess, personal perspective on what self-care means
Absolutely.
to me.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
so as much as Angela will say self-care is bullshit, she will tell you to go take care of yourself in the
Gotcha.
sense of
Yeah.
do the things that you need to do that are within your means and within your grasp
Right.
that are going to help you gain more matches.
Yep.
Which
Yes.
there was an episode yesterday about that.
Yes.
The other day.
Absolutely. And the
But-
big thing
but
about
yeah.
self-care is being able to ask for support from others. That the best self-care technique that we have is remembering that we can ask for help when we can't do that for ourselves. Yes, I am so glad that you brought that topic up today.
Wonderful.
This is kind of along the same line. And this is also going back to you talking about being an entrepreneur and the transitions and the difficulty that you had with everything having to be perfect and not being able to allow for mistakes. And that's something that you're really working on. So you were interviewed in the Gonzaga Bulletin, and this is what you said. Just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to embarrass yourself. You're going to embarrass yourself along the way. And the sooner you do it, the sooner you can move past that and get where you actually want to be. Can you
I
tell
guess
us
I did
about
say
that?
that.
You did say that.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. I guess the perfectionism definitely ties in. Of if I'm putting myself out there, I don't want to embarrass myself. Obviously, I want people to think that I know what I'm talking about and that I am passionate about this, and that it's not just some random thing that I thought of. Sorry, I was once again. I looked on a different monitor and got distracted. Lost my train of thought there. But the biggest
Good.
hurdle for me initially was, and I would suggest this for any small business owner, get comfortable in front of a camera, even if it's just super basic of you talking to the camera and not even posting it. Just get comfortable talking to the camera. Posting it will obviously be better because you will get some hate, but you'll okay, gonna back up another step. At the first video that I posted that got hate comments, I don't remember which one it was, but those really got to me. And then the next time I got those, they didn't bother me as much. And then now if I get them, I'm like, oh, whatever, fuck you. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on here.
You can cuss all you want.
You can.
Okay, wonderful.
You could have
And
an
so-
entire dissertation just using the one word since it is all forms of speech.
It is interesting,
Be
isn't
okay
it?
with it.
Yeah.
From a
I
scientific
didn't mean to go.
perspective, cussing engages the parasympathetic nervous system and helps us regulate. So go for it.
The more you know. Okay, well that explains a lot. I won't feel bad about it anymore.
No, don't.
But anyways, you get a lot of mental resiliency for putting yourself out there as a person as well as for your business. If you talk about it online and people hate on it, obviously you don't want people to hate on it. It's still never fun, but it's a lot easier to have, get a few hate comments and then a few more and then a few more. And then even if you release your product or service or whatever, and people are really up in arms about it, it's not going to destroy you like it would if you went from like nothing till suddenly hate. Like, I don't think I'm articulating this super well, but putting yourself out there as, a genuine version of yourself, or just like comedy where you're doing bits and it's not actually you, it feels different if you're talking to the camera directly as you, compared to if you're doing like a little skit where it's two different characters that aren't really you. You're a little bit more emotionally detached from that. And yeah, I don't think I articulated that super well, but hopefully it made some degree of sense.
Yeah,
It
no,
made
I love it
sense.
because in our community, and oh my gosh, we hear this all of the time. All of the time. Just yesterday, I was talking to an emerging coach, and she said I cannot get in front of the camera, and every time I do, I just blank and I don't know what to say. So I said, Molly, we need to be talking to Marco Polo since we talk about them so much. Um,
Oh, yeah.
right, we need to talk with them. Anyway,
I have a connection.
I said to her, I said, look, get Marco Polo and have a couple of friends who you regularly talk to also get Marco Polo and have conversations with them through that app, because you can download pieces of that conversation. So you're not in the mode of, oh no, I'm being filmed, but at the same time, you are taking a video that can be used as you learn that process of getting in front of the camera.
Mhm.
It's a great tool and a great app to help those people who don't like that.
Yeah, and being able to advocate for your business personally as opposed to relying on someone who you hire specifically to do that goes so far. Um, and it definitely helped enable me to win a business competition I believe it was last April, way before the Kickstarter or anything. Got $10,000 in prize money for that, which was awesome. All went towards the company. That's what allowed us to make the mold, because making a mold is surprisingly expensive for injection molding. Um,
Mhm.
but the fact that I'd already been posting on TikTok for months and months and months prior to that made me so much more comfortable in front of the camera and dealing with criticism from the judges, and picking apart my opponent's pitches and trying to figure out ways to one up them, or like listening to, okay, the judge asked this question about this aspect of their business. That means that's something that's important to them. So that's something I'm going to make sure I emphasize in my presentation or in my round of questions. And so, yeah, my number one tip for small business owners would be comfortable in front of the camera, or learn to be comfortable in front of the camera to some extent, to where you can personally advocate for your business in a way that is compelling. I certainly would not be, or Stimagz would not be where it is now without all of the connections that I made through creating content on my personal page. I wouldn't have been able to get in contact with any of the people that are now brand ambassadors for Stimagz. There's no chance if I were just coming out of it as like, hey, I'm making this product for ADHD people. And I think I touched on this a bit earlier, but you don't obviously don't have to make an account focused on content for whatever your niche is for a year and a half before launching a product. That's overkill. But being knowledgeable and being comfortable are huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have one last subject,
Alrighty.
and then I think we'll round it up, which we did not have this question before, and I didn't know if this was something you deal with. So, but it has been a conversation for not just Angela and I, but me and several of my clients as well. So I'm going to assume a lot of people in the community have this question too. So RSD, are you a person who has RSD or has been dealing with others that have RSD and have had to handle this within your business, and how have you, if you have?
Definitely. So RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, technically is not a medical term, but I think it's going to be one of those things where
Mhm.
in time, the medical community will likely catch up and implement some variation of the current understanding, or the current, I guess, communal understanding of RSD into the DSM-5, or I suppose it'd be DSM-6 or something along those lines. I expect that'll happen at some point, but just to clarify, just because I've talked about that on my pages before, and so I just didn't want people to like hear it and think like, wait, that's not what he said earlier. But anyways,
Okay.
yes, that is definitely something that I have dealt with and continue to deal with. It's a lot easier to deal with when, for example, like if I'm having a bad day and I'm thinking, oh, people don't like Stimagz, I'm the only one that actually likes them. People are just I don't know, doing this because they're like, oh, look at this guy, he's doing his dream, sure, I'll buy one. And then it sits on a shelf. And then I will go and read the hundreds of positive reviews that have been left about Stimagz, or watch some of the testimonial videos. And that's obviously something you can only do after you've already put your thing out there. So it doesn't help with the initial imposter syndrome or RSD. And that was something I really struggled with, even leading up to the launch. Especially because initially, before they were out there at all and there were people advocating for them beyond just me, people would very frequently say, oh, these are just blank, or these are just blank, like referencing those toys that I had as a kid. And I sort of gaslit myself into thinking, oh my gosh, these are just the same thing. I'm a fraud. And that I had to remind myself of, no, if they were the same thing, I would still just be using those. I wouldn't have made my own product. There would have been no point in doing that. And now it's a lot easier to combat that in terms of, those hundreds of positive reviews and people like you two who really enjoy Stimagz. That makes my heart whole, knowing that my baby is giving people so much joy. And you can, sorry, to go back to the original question, overcoming RSD before you have those many sources of validation. And it's a lot easier to internally validate yourself once you have external validation to fall back on. It's a bit of a trap. But in the short term, try to find people, or try to remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, and just keep that in the core of your brain. No matter what else anyone else says, don't let yourself gaslight yourself into thinking that what you're doing doesn't matter. Because if you're passionate about something, it almost certainly matters, at least to you, and that's enough. Because people, I guess this goes in more into the marketing side, but even if you're selling a useless thing, if people see that you're passionate about it, that may be enough to convince them to buy it. Even if they don't actually really want it, or they don't actually really like it, if someone sees how passionate you personally are about something that you've made, that may be enough. Obviously, don't base all of your marketing around that, but
Right, but that does get people to try something that they wouldn't try initially.
yeah,
It's like, ooh, look how excited they are about it.
I
I'm
must
gonna
be missing out.
try it. I don't know that I'm
Yeah.
gonna like it, but I'm gonna try it,
Right. Yeah.
and I might love
And I
it.
feel that's an especially true statement if you are doing something like Indiegogo or Kickstarter as well,
Yeah,
because it's a thing nobody's had before.
and
Like,
it's so
if you come
public.
on and you're like, this took a really long time to make, please buy it. Like, people are gonna be like, well, no.
Yeah.
You have to have some energy, and not energy like Bubbles from Powerpuff Girls. Like, just like
People need to see
show up
your
for yourself.
passion come through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to spark their in cup.
Yes.
Okay, I have to jump on this for just a minute because you touched on that self-care and community care again, talking about RSD and validation, because truly the response to addressing when you are aware of your own RSD and being able to address that is being able to have that internal thing where you're like, okay, but that's not actually true. Here's what's actually happening. And, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, however, in order to get to that point, engaging in the community care and having people who you can reach out to who can help on the external side while you are building that skill is pivotal to that happening for you.
Indeed, and that goes a bit back to that quote that you pulled from the Gonzaga Bulletin of, you're going to embarrass yourself, so do it sooner rather than later so you can move on. Is the sooner you at some point you have to stop thinking and just send it. Like I put off the Kickstarter for so long, and eventually got to the point like, nope, I'm setting a date, I'm announcing it, I'm now beholden to that date. Sorry, I was tapping on my table. Sorry if that causes vibrations in the sound, but at some point you just got to turn off the emotional brain and just go for it before thinking about it too much, especially if you're poring over the same thing for days and days and days. You're like, okay, I've looked through this document, I'm changing one word every 2 hours of looking at it. Just say like, nope, it's done, sending it, not thinking about it, it's done. And that can be hard to
Bring
do.
some spark to your business.
Yeah. You got
I mean, I absolutely said this the other day. I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Not everything is going to be perfect, but consistently sending a message and consistently, being authentic to yourself or to your company or to your project. That's the key, not perfection.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we could probably talk for several hours.
I think this
But
is our
I'm
longest
not sure.
episode.
I know.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
not
flattered.
sure
I love
that
it.
all of our autistic ADHD friends can handle anymore at the moment. Although if we're a special interest, then they could go on forever too. But is there anything else you want to say before we close this episode?
If you want, you could split it into two parts. That's what I did with one of my long episodes because it just went on for a while of us just having good conversation.
Yeah.
And people did say it made it a bit more digestible. Just a thought. I don't know where that split would happen, but you could do that if you wanted to make it a bit easier for people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a very good closing thought, I suppose.
Yes, but we share things like that, and that's how we show our love.
Yes,
Just a
indeed.
thing.
Info dumping is huge. I
Yes.
guess it's not really info dump, just sharing. But anyways, thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time chatting with you all, and I'm so glad you're enjoying your Stimagz.
Oh,
Yay!
yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Molly, do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else. You can do the outro.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for listening to Drudgery Dreams and In Between, a weekly live podcast coming to you every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates when we're back here next week. For all you podcast geeks, subscribe on your favorite podcast app. If you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To catch all the latest from us, visit us at drudgeryanddreams.com and follow on your favorite social media platforms at Drudgery and Dreams. Thanks again. See you next time.
Bye.